Hello everyone, we are in Bere community and we have visited Mr. Mafrika. Mafrika is a name that is popularly known by his friends by, and he will kindly tell us what his real names are and what he's involved with.
Okay. Hi Eric, thank you for having me. And my name is actually Joe Nthiga Kiboi. Mafrika is a pet name for me and a name given to me by my friends when I was young. Somehow that name has always defined me, who I am and what I'm going to be. That's true African, that's true son of Africa, and I'm fond of that name. I live in Bere, where we are today. Bere is part of Embu County, and that's me, and this is where I live.
Your work heavily involves working with the youth and addressing some of the deep-seated problems that are facing the youth today in Mbere. And what we can say is that Mbere is not a very heavily populated county. And one thing that stands out is that it's got problems that actually belong in the city. Can you tell us about your involvements with the youth and what they're struggling with?
Okay. Yes, indeed, Eric, I am fond, and I am. It's actually a concern for me because we need to first define our youth. Who is youth? Is it 20 to 25? Because 18, 19, those are teenagers. 20 probably a teenager. 21, is that where does it youth start? And when you say youth, then what are the opportunities? What do we identify as opportunities for the youth? What do I mean? In our African custom, we have initiations processes where young people are initiated through processes. And in their own way, they must fulfill these processes. That is why we even go to school. And we go to school in stages so that you become a young man, a young lady, then you upgrade to the next class. Same way in your customs and in life. You become from this age, as a man you're initiated, and there's a manhood ritual that goes with it, and you're brought into that other category. If we don't do that, then we'll have a problem of identifying what belongs where. At my age today, I cannot go and sit with young men on the same table and discuss issues that are within the same capacity. I must be defined. Am I youth or am I youth? And in that sense, that's what I'm saying, that for Africa to be able to move, we must define our spaces. That we know there are some jobs. Yes, there's always experience. Even at home, as a parent, there is that stage where I will hand over as a father and hand over to the next son. So there must be that stage I must define that this is a cut-off place, that my son should come over and take over. I cannot sit on that seat forever. The biggest problem now, therefore, for our youth is defining, and for us to be able to define for them what are their spaces. Now, when we define their spaces, then we can see our country, Africa, moving on. How do I mean that? Today, leadership is coming from one old man to the next old man. Okay? We say, let's say for example, today in Kenya, we have, it's only now that we have a 50-year-old who's running the country. But who is he handing over to? The youth is struggling and fighting with the older people for the same seat where there should be now, the older people should be vacating. Now, when we have these spaces not being defined, then we have conflict. And conflict will come in between the youth and the old. Now, that conflict will eventually define who we are going to be as a people. Because if you start fighting your father in your own home, there are two things that he will do. He will either throw you out and curse you. As African, we believe if you fight your father and you get cursed, you do not progress. Therefore, what do we have? We start having rebellion. What does rebellion do? It will never progress. We become a fighting nation. So, for me, the youth have that as a first problem. And anything that does not have that space to grow expands and blows. In Africa, expansion will probably be revolution. We can see the impatience our youth are having. We can see the complaints our youth are having. We can see their spaces now, because when we talk about spaces, we're talking about also technology. The technology that has come today is not for me, it's for the youth. Mine came with the telephone, the handheld telephone. It came with the shift gear. That was my space. This is a space for the youth now to come and optimize theirs.
What about self-awareness? Self-awareness and expectations. Do you think that the youth have that kind of thing so that they know what to expect from the older generation?
Awareness and expectation is what you pass down to your generation. Okay? As a father, and I want to put that because the parent is the head of the house. He's the one who gives guidance.
Yes.
So when you talk about awareness and expectations, it is you as a father to give your child expectations. What do you expect from them? They do not necessarily have to become you. They do not have to follow, if you're a policeman, that your son has to become a policeman. No. But what are your expectations? What level do you want him to get to? A child will only surpass his father. The expectations of a father to a child is that they can become better than them. Therefore, I would like my son to be better than me. My expectation that is in life, I have done my part. Can you take it further up? Now, therefore, I will give him guidance. And when he gets there, I will sit aside and advise him. Become an advisor to him. I take an advisory role and tell him, now, son, this is the way things are going. If he goes into politics and he's having it rough out there, he needs to come and sit down with his father and discuss and tell him, Dad, I'm having these problems. What do you think I should do? Give him impart wisdom to him, but not fighting for those spaces. And that's what we're doing. Then the other thing is that in our expectation, we have killed our youth because, one, we have taken up up to their mental growth. What do I mean by mental growth? Today, one of the biggest setbacks for Africa is corruption. Okay? The people who are being corrupt is not the youth, it's our generation. Our generation. If you look at the people in the big seats today, they are above 55. These are the people who are looting this economy. If you ask them why you're looting, they're looting for their children. Okay? Because they want their children to be comfortable. But they're forgetting one thing. Their children need to grow mentally and to be able to give their 12 hours of work to this nation. They need to give the input into this nation. If you start looting money from a country to buy your children the luxuries of this world, what are you telling him? What exactly are you imparting to this young generation? You're just telling them, look, there are easier ways to make money. Just come sit where I was seated and still. Or sit back, I will provide for you and you shall never be. Why would anybody want to have billions of shillings? For who? Your life expectancy, if I give you a positive, if you become very positive, is 80. It's 80 years old. So, your expectation and awareness, everybody is aware of what they want to do. But again, it comes back to us. We are closing their spaces. Yes.
The youth and education as a way of building them up or initiating them into the economic space. Talk about the potential of the youth to take up the mantle into the next level.
That needs not to be talked about, Eric. How old is Zuckerberg? Okay? How old is Mark Zuckerberg? How old is Bezos? That potential is it. Today, look at the world. The world is locked down on COVID. How are people communicating? This innovation is coming from where? It's not coming from me. If I was able to bring this world, if I was able to do this innovation, if I was able to do Zoom, if I was able to do this communication, the technology of today, I would have done it 10, 15, 20 years ago. Therefore, we would have been where we are today 20 years ago because I would have had that capacity. But now, the expectation of youth is now. It is here. We do not expect anything from them. It is now. In Africa, look at M-Pesa. Who did it? Youth. Look at Jambo Pay. Youth. And these are instruments that are working for Kenya. But who is sitting on the top of the chain? Who doesn't even understand how it is used? He cannot even apply it. He has to get another youth or junior to come and interpret it to him and operate that same equipment. So when we say what is our expectation of youth, they're already there. We should not be expecting anything from them. The only expectation and issues we should be having is, why aren't you able to do this? If you have done this today, why aren't you able to do this? I sit back and let them implement, innovate and implement. But the issues that every day we're expecting youth, I have no expectation from them. I want them to be given their space and see what they can do.
In Africa, you're operating in an area where you have a cash crop that is bringing a lot of money, putting a lot of money into youth's hands, and it's coming with its problems. You're heavily involved in this, and we need you to tell us a little bit about that, and maybe what you're doing to try and alleviate the situation, because you're in danger of losing a whole generation.
True, Eric, yes. Our region, Bere, we are the biggest growers of a substance called mogoka. It's a kind of cat, but as opposed to the other, what we call mira, the actual cat, this is a leaf. The other one that is more popular across the world is the actual cat that people chew on the stem. For us, as a people of Mbere, mogoka, because we call it mogoka, is both a blessing and a curse. Mogoka itself was a substance that was chewed by our ancestors. It has always been there. It's a substance, it's a narcotic substance. It has those narcotic effects. It's a substance that used to be chewed by our ancestors, and they would do this after the day's work and everything is done, and then they would sit as in that council of elders where they used to sit as a chat, and they would chew it. So it's also kind of a laxative. It relaxes you, and they say, I don't use it, but they say it gives you a lot of mental hallucinations. You think big, you get ideas. It has a lot of things, and because of its demand, it is addictive. Of its demand, it has brought in a lot of money into our region. Our people were initially very poor. Our region is semi-arid. We used to grow cotton and tobacco. These are two markets that were badly hit. When we used to grow cotton and cotton was valuable, then we used to be, we used to have some money in our pockets. But as time went on, cotton became no longer valuable. It was not making sense because you need big tracts of land and huge amounts of land for you to grow substantial quantities of cotton. Then tobacco, of course, the tobacco industry was hit all over the world, the reduction of tobacco products and all that. So we were left without anything other than the normal crops were maize and beans and, just normal crops and, what do you call them? Dengu, the small, those were the crops we were left in. And they were not sufficient for us to be able to sustain homes. So somehow mogoka came into play, and I don't know how it did, but all of a sudden mogoka just boomed. We used to have mud houses, those tukuls, those huts, grass thatched houses, and all of a sudden all those went away. People started building proper houses, started building getting their lives in a better lifestyle. And it changed our livelihoods. Now, the positive, yes, we got the money. The negatives, the money went into the wrong hands. Because now, as the leader, you see, the African culture is very complicated. Because as a landowner, I end up dividing my land to my children. But you see, you don't do this until your children are matured. Unfortunately for us today, our elders are removing their responsibilities. Our elders have actually come and said, it's a way, they will not tell you that, and nobody will say it. But what they've done is that they're removing their parental responsibilities and giving them to their children. What am I saying? I have sat somewhere with my friends, and we are having a cup of tea, and a child comes over and says, "Dad, I'm going back to school. Can I get some pocket money?" And the father retorts to the son and tells him, "What do you mean? At this time unakuja kunitisha pocket money? You're coming to ask me for pocket money, and you have mogoka in the farm. What have you done? You have just given that boy an open check, and so I can go and harvest mogoka. So I can go actually, and I don't have to ask my dad for money." So you have just removed that boy from a normal world into an extraordinary world, because he will go today. You used to give him pocket money for 200 shillings, which he would go and know, I'm going to use this. This is the only money I have. But now you've given him an open check. I know I want to go to school, so I need like 500 shillings or 600 or 1,000 shillings. I will make sure I will go and have this mogoka worth 1,000 shillings. You have removed your responsibility from yourself of bringing up and training your child how to be responsible and throwing him into the wild. He will never come to you for advice again. He will be removing money. You will never know what your son is doing. He will be harvesting, selling, buying drugs, spending money with whatever way we have. Therefore, we have people who now have gone to the extent and divided their land to their children before the children are actually mature. They're just going mogoka. That is your land. Do what you want with it. He grows mogoka. He no longer goes to school. Okay? He doesn't go to school. He's got money in his pocket. He will be drinking. That young girl who's going to school, he will go for her. The next thing, the young girl is pregnant. She's a school dropout. That is the effect mogoka is having.
What are you doing as a community?
When it comes to that, it's very difficult to do anything, because it's an addiction now.
It is.
Okay, and to kill an addiction is one of the most difficult things. You need to take it to rehab, and nobody likes going into rehab. Nobody would like to go into a rehab. I will not lie to you, Eric, that we're doing anything, because one time our bishop, he went and talked badly about mogoka and said how destructive it is to our communities. The following day, they moved the market from where it was to his doorsteps in defiance. Okay, to show him, what are you telling us? We will be selling it from your door. The bishop had to retract that and say to these people, I am sorry. I did not mean mogoka was bad, but please let's be responsible. They said, oh, is that so? Our MPs, our politicians will not fight it. Because if you fight it, you will not get elected. Okay? It's a catch-22. You will not get elected because you are fighting something that people seem to be benefiting it. However said and done, all is not gloom. We are, the president the other day gave money to be distributed to these people. They've been encouraged to form circles. Those are social groups. And within those groups, we are asking them to come up with their own constitutions. For example, if you're going to benefit from this money that is being given by the government, then one of the things we are recommending to them is that make sure that any homestead that has children go to school. Okay? If it is your circle and you want your member to be a member of this circle, make sure that the children are not going into the farms, they are not involved in the harvesting, they are not involved in any way labor of that product. Then we have to start now from that community organization, which is a circle, which has the capacity to reject or accept these members on their terms. Because if a circle says, I won't give you loans because you are not following our constitution, then that can be effective. But if we say it's an issue that you are going to come over and just talk it out, and just say that this is the way we are going to talk out in the papers, in the media, this is what you're going to public forums, awareness programs, it won't work. It won't work. So at least that is the way we are following it. People have not, if the church talks about it, tomorrow you have no congregation. Right? People say, no, that church is not good. It's fighting mogoka. So that is the only way we are trying to bring this thing into, you know, into a controllable and more disciplined market.
Finally, a message of hope regarding our youth for the future.
Now, the few things I would probably like to say this before you say finally.
Okay.
One is we need to take our youth very seriously. If we do not take care of our youth, today you can see what they're doing. They're doing contrary to what our morals are. Okay? Ask yourself, why is the youth going on the opposite direction? They are having look at their sexual exposure. Okay? Whether it's the entertainment industry, look at the morals within it. It's completely showing us they are rebelling. Right? Listen to their songs. Okay? They're not talking anything productive because they're saying there is nothing sensible to discuss with you people. So let us talk our own language. And that is a language they're talking about. If I go and tell my son, no, this is immoral, he'll ask you, so what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me that is of substance? And we must also accept that the youth has a lot of burden. The complexity of it is that life has a particular pattern. Okay? Ourselves, our generation, we are competing immorally with the youth, with their generation. You cannot understand terms like sugar mommy, sugar daddy. Where do they come from? That shows you what our generation, and when I talk about my generation, I'm talking about people of my age. It shows you what kind of converted mind they have. Because, to be honest, to go and compete with your daughter is my daughter. It does not matter whether we are blood related or not. As long as she's a certain age, she is my daughter. Now, when we start competing with my son, what do you expect? Do you think that the young man will respect me in any way? He will rebel. And the only way he can rebel is to come and abuse me in my home and disrespect me in my home because I'm disrespecting him. Having said that is a mindset, but it should be taken a long way because it's also the vice to corruption. Because as a person, I'm denying the young man, I'm stealing his resources to go and misuse them and fight him in his space. Therefore, that corruption, it goes a long way. I'm stealing money where this young man, my son can only be 3, but in essence, a whole village has sons. And if I only take care of my only one son and forget about the others, they will come to my home.
Thank you very much. I think you've given us a lot of insights that are going to make a lot of interesting listening to and watching. And we know that Success Africa will be highlighting every issue that is affecting our youth in society, because they're a very important pillar in our growth and in our ambitions as a continent. So we thank you, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Asante sana.
Karibuni.